you'll sometimes hear people argue in this way. How can you say that economic intervention always has bad effects because look how well China is doing? Or another example, Krugman and other people said, well, look, if you take the United States in the 1950s, it's not the case that progressive taxation harms the economy because look how well the economy was doing even when we had progressive taxation. So what's wrong with this way of reasoning is that these statements aren't built up from a particular theory. They'll say, well, look, the Chinese economy is doing very well, it's growing very rapidly, but at the same time they have a lot of state intervention. So it can't be the case that the state intervention is bad for the economy. So you see, this doesn't follow at all because all that we have here is a correlation between state intervention and high growth rate. That doesn't show there's a causal relationship between the two. It could be that the Chinese economy would be doing even better than it is now if they didn't have extensive state intervention. That isn't ruled out by the fact that they're doing well when they do have state intervention. If you argue in this way, you're just giving certain correlations between things. You aren't showing that there's a genuine causal relationship. To show there's a genuine causal relationship, we would have to build up a theory, just in the way we do in Austrian economics, from first principles, saying why certain policies would lead to prosperity and why certain policies wouldn't. So we have to have a coherent theory to do this. It isn't enough just to point out certain correlations. If we follow the correct course of building up a theory, then suppose what we want to do is find out whether the economic effects of certain kinds of policies. Well, one thing that's extremely important to do is that we have to take account all the effects of the measure we're considering, not just some of the effects. We have to consider all the effects of it. Some people say, well, this shows that Mises and other Austrians are just concerned with the long run. But what about the short run? Why shouldn't we prefer the short run to the long run? For example, you'll hear people today saying, well, we're in a recession, so the government needs to spend a lot of money. This might raise the debt, but that's something to worry about in the future. What's important is what we need to do now. Why not emphasize the short run rather than the long run? So Mises pointed out that he wasn't saying we should always prefer the long run to the short run, but simply that we should be aware of all the consequences, both short run and long run, so we could then decide what to do on the basis of the fullest information we can come up with. Now, I want to give an example of, you'll sometimes hear arguments for protective tariffs along these lines. People will say, supposing we have an industry, let's say car manufacturing, and foreign cars can undersell the cars that we have. So then unless we protect this car industry, then the workers in this car industry will lose their jobs, and this will be very bad for them and very bad for the economy because all those people will be out of work, and then they won't be spending as much money as they had before on things they would buy. So this will lead to a cycle where people will just stop spending and it'll have generally bad effects. So we need a tariff so this won't happen. Now, of course, what this is overlooking is that if the foreign firm was selling the cars at a lower price than the American firm was able to do, then the consumers are benefiting from the lower prices, then they have more money to spend on other things. And also, supposing then when, say, the foreign firm makes money and they get American money for selling the cars, then they will then spend the money for American products that they are exported to their country. So the producers of these export industries benefit from that. So here you see it's quite different if we take account just the immediate consequences that these workers in the car industry are out of a job, and we take account all the consequences. It doesn't follow from what I've said that economics can conclude it's wrong to impose the tariff. That would be a value judgment. It might be a very reasonable one to make, but that wouldn't follow from the economic analysis. What the economic analysis is just telling you what the effects of the tariff are. It doesn't tell you what you should do. It's just stating what the effects are.